Alright, so today's video is brought to you by this comment from Sir Thanks a Lot. 10% of the wizards are casting 70% of the spells. I took that comment, stuck it into ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with. And I thought about this a lot because throughout my entire life of working, basically doing the same job, I've been in a lot of different workplaces and I've seen the exact same behavior everywhere I go. People do as little work as humanly possible. And then when it comes down to why they haven't accomplished anything, they kind of just look around and point fingers. This is kind of a situation that I got myself into when I was working at Insight. I got hired in a group interview for a brand new client, and most of my future coworkers at the time were going to be pretty bad. I mean, we're talking about they had people that were actually working at McDonald's the day before. When it came to a job like this, often you do not get the most talented people. You get what's left at the bottom of the barrel that will work for $15 an hour. This meant that quickly the people that could do the job and that were overqualified and underemployed, like myself, would have to take the lead. And of course, that also meant that I would get the hardest work. And they would cherry pick the tickets. And at the end of the day, I would be the person cleaning up the ticket queue. And it went on like this for months. And I complained about it, and no one did anything because that's what having useless coworkers is. It's you doing the heavy lifting, and the other people kind of just looking at you like you're stupid for trying. Because when it comes down to it, everyone there's making the same amount of money. So, every job I've worked at, I walk in thinking it'll be different. That maybe this time the team will actually be a team and not just a bunch of bodies orbiting a few overworked planets. But within 2 weeks, it's clear. I'm doing the work of five people while everyone else floats by collecting a check and perfecting the art of disappearing. And somehow I'm the one being called a good, not to be a good fit for employment there. If I had just one penny for every time I've had someone tell me that I wasn't a team player, I'd be a very wealthy man right now. But it doesn't take a person that's that great. It just takes a person that wants to come to work, do their job, and go home. Put the fries in the bag, little bro, then go home. Work isn't supposed to be that hard, but it can be when they don't have enough people. Every single department that I've worked at throughout my entire life starts out at one size. And I'll take, for instance, working at Allied Waste, right? When I started working there, they had around 12 desks for that help desk. And then there was the West Coast corporate office, and then there was the East Coast corporate office. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up transferring more and more of the work out to the East Coast office because they were actually located in a landfill or a transfer station, or there was a lot of garbage there. They panned the meeting camera outside, you could see the seagulls dropping pterodactyl sized dumps on their cars. It looked like snow. There was so much crap in the parking lot. But what it came down to is they kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking their technology departments to the point where you had so few people that had just given up. And that's the kind of thing that I've seen throughout my entire career. Is you shrink the workforce, force them to do more work, provide very little to no training. When you show up on day one, you better be able to learn quickly or you're not going to make it. A person that shows up and is only interested in doing what they got hired for, that's a person that's not going to last. A person that can't be inconvenienced by work is not going to last in this environment because having to work in different jobs all of the time, from 1 minute you're underneath a desk, the next minute you're cleaning something, the next minute, hell, you're probably cleaning the bathroom. I never thought I'd find myself cleaning bathrooms as an adult man, but I have. I've cleaned the bathroom so many times in my life that I just kind of, you kind of just want to forget all the crummy things that you've had to do, all the mysterious stains that you've had to wipe clean. All of that goes out the window because it's just a job. At the end of the day, this job isn't going to make you rich, and the people around you, they get that feeling. I've mentioned this many times before, but once a person notices that no one's getting promoted, no one's getting raises, and that if you want to further your career, you have to leave. That's really what it comes down to. You have to leave because the corporation doesn't want to create exceptional workers. They don't want people thriving in the workplace. They don't want you being able to feel happiness in the workplace because happy people won't work in miserable environments. I've seen that happen so many times where they come in and they're like, why is everyone like this? It's like, that's the way everyone is. If you're going to accept this as your career, you're going to have to accept being miserable. And I remember a few people like that when I worked at Insight that had their little plastic trophies that said 20 years sitting on their desk. And I thought, that person gave up on life 20 years ago. Talking point number one. Most workplaces aren't collaborative ecosystems. They're decaying bunkers where a few over-functioning survivors keep the generators running while everyone else hoards coffee and pretends to be busy. If you're competent, you get punished with more work. If you're clueless, you get protected by the system. It's not about merit, it's about how invisible you can stay while someone else takes the fall. This can be said about the original senior manager that I had when I first started working at Able Corp. It's like by day, he pretended, by night, someone else had to be covering. Because if they weren't doing his work for him, then it would show that sometimes people aren't doing their jobs. And that's exactly what happened when I worked at the university. So, again, classic situation. The guy had been the senior manager of this department for over 12 years, but he had two really, really good guys covering him for him. One of them graduated my last year that I was working for that department, and the other guy just decided that he needed a change. So he found a job in Tucson, moved to Tucson, and that left the senior manager exposed. That left his incompetence exposed. And very shortly after those two employees left, that manager was let go. Not in a nice, friendly way either. He pretty much got securityed out the front door. Because once people figure out that you're not actually doing the job, they will move very quickly against you. And that's what happened to him. I think he was 38 when he got fired, but he was in his 20s. Like you look at his picture, he had a picture of himself next to the front door of the office, and you could see how young he was, how young and skinny he was. He looked like a toothpick when he initially got hired on. Well, the man he became was 300 pounds, and he knew he was being targeted as soon as the work stopped getting done. As soon as he didn't have the right people with the right mindsets to work there, he knew his days were numbered. I had left shortly because I'd graduated from college and I couldn't keep that job anymore because it's a student worker job. And I had heard that they hired a new manager for him. Can you imagine that? You've been running your own department for 12 years and suddenly the school decides to hire someone that's overseeing your department and asking you what you do at work. Yes, it reminded me a lot of the movie Office Space. So what do you do here? And when the answer is, well, I kind of just sit here all day. And that wasn't the right answer. And it didn't take long. After that, his whole life crumbled. His wife left him. He lost his house. He had to move back home with his parents. His life literally crumbled because he couldn't get a job. He hadn't really worked in 12 years. I mean, you imagine going to a job interview where you haven't done anything? And that's what happens to people like that. I was handling almost all of the purchasing of new equipment, experimental equipment. Let's put it this way: when you go from Dell Latitudes to Dell XPSs in an enterprise setting, those XPSs were never designed to work there. Sure, they may be pretty, but we had so many problems with them that it was a giant mistake for my boss to decide that that's what he wanted. It was my job to make it work. All right, talking point number two. Your exhaustion is part of the business model. As long as you keep saying yes while silently falling apart, they don't need to hire help, fix processes, or train anyone new. You're the duct tape holding together a collapsing machine, and they know you're too scared to rip yourself off. I have no idea what it means by that. No, you're too scared to rip yourself off. I guess if you're a band aid holding something together, that would mean that you would be too scared to pull it off and injure yourself. But I think a lot of people stay in the workplace for that reason alone. I know that over the years of talking to my coworkers that a lot of them stay because they have families to stay for. They have children that need food. They have wives that need cars, and they have to pay for expensive family vacations. Because as a single man myself, there isn't a whole lot that you can hold over my head. I don't own a home. I don't drive a fancy car. I'm not particularly excited about waking up in the morning. But when you have real things to lose, that's when you get people to stay up until the end. Until you feel like there's just no real reason for keeping them around. And it was actually something that I learned, and I've had about 10 or 12 jobs at the university because I spent so much of my life there. So I get to see this dynamic repeated over and over again, especially among men that needed to have a job. When it came to single men, you could intimidate them, you could do whatever, you could put them down, you could treat them like crap. They don't care. They don't have anything. Maybe they have a plant or a fish or some other kind of pet that they think about. But at the end of the day, it's nothing like holding the feet over the fire of a married man with a mortgage and 10 kids. It's completely different. So when these guys get in there, they have a tendency to stay regardless of the toxic environment. Talking point number three. Useless coworkers aren't just a glitch in the hiring system, they're a tool. People who can't do the job never challenge authority, don't ask for raises, and don't disrupt the illusion of teamwork. You, on the other hand, are a threat because you actually see how broken everything is, and worse, you're capable of fixing it. I wouldn't go that far, ChatGPT, but there's definitely a certain amount of ignorance that's built right into the system. You see it everywhere you go. It's the same. And that's the irony of it. No matter where you go, what job you're doing, you're going to see humans behaving in the exact same way. Like yesterday, I was watching a video of a woman. She's a low-level manager inside of a Amazon warehouse, and she called the cops on a worker because the worker wouldn't leave. The worker was showing the cameraman that she was on the schedule, and the manager didn't want her there. So instead of forcibly removing her, probably because they don't pay for security, that's the only reason I could think of is why didn't someone that works there remove her? Because, like when I worked at Walmart, they would not pay for security. They used the local police as security inside of the store. So they called the cops. The cops came. They told her she had to leave, and she kept showing the cops on her phone that she was on the schedule. And regardless, that employee had to leave. And you think, and why did I bring that up? Because it was something that YouTube recommended to me so randomly. Like, you don't work here anymore. And it reminds you of all of the times that you yourself have been escorted out of the building and how many people you've seen leave work in a bad way, not just for the day, but forever. This is something I think about, and I'm going off on a tangent, of course, here. Every time I walk out into the parking lot of my current job, I look at all the cars that I've seen over the years and years that have been there and how they're not there anymore. I look at how the parking lot changes every day because here at my apartment complex, I pretty much figured out there's the Jeep that usually parks next to me. There's a white Subaru that parks on the other side of me. There's a BMW and two more Subarus that park in our. We play musical chairs in that part of the parking lot every single day. It's like you just get to know the cars that you walk past every single day on your way in and on your way out. And it's that way everywhere you go, with coworkers, with man managers, with people who aren't coming to stay. They're the kind of people who are coming in, doing maybe a year, maybe 2 years, realize that, uh-oh, this isn't a company I want to work for, and they get out. Sometimes they make it on their own to leave. Sometimes they have to have help. And there was a coworker of mine that I was talking to about 10 days ago, and he said to me, Millennial Steam, they fired me already 3 times. And 3 times they've asked me to come back. And I said, why do you keep coming back? And he told me, because I need a job. That was his only rationale for continuing to take the job offer. So they fire you on Monday. On Wednesday, they realize, oh my God, we can't find anyone that will work this cheap. And then they hire you back. And you're like, wow. I mean, there's the dignity of work for you guys. The truth is, most of your coworkers are useless. Not by accident, but by design. The system runs on people like you, the quiet fixers, the ones who care, the ones who bleed for every deadline. It's like a battle scar, but you can't keep casting spells in a world that drains your magic without ever without ever offering rest. So take this as your reminder. Protect your power before they bury you in their laziness and call it company culture. Wow, that was the closing monologue that ChatGPT gave me. A little repetitive, but I think it hit the mark. They steal your power. At the end of the day, when you leave Evil Corp, your soul is missing. The Soul Suck 3000 machine that was attached to your rear end when you got to work, well, it did its job. It removed your soul. Now you're going home to power down for the evening. And tomorrow morning, when that little bit of your soul comes back into your body, the Soul Suck 3000 will be right there to make certain that it gets every single drop of it right back because it needs it to run the machine.